Well, good day, and welcome to another episode of WEDCOnomics, brought to you by Wolfeboro Community TV, a most worthy organization that we all should get behind because they offer great programming, local programming, and it's a great way to stay informed about what's going on where we live. And I am Jack Terrill. I'm the Executive Director of Wentworth Economic Development Corporation, otherwise known as WEDCO. And we are here as a 501c3. And our mission is to advise, finance, and promote the small business sector here in the Eastern Lakes region. We have 11 communities that we serve. It's a great honor to have this job. It's very fulfilling, and it's fulfilling in the sense that if you can help somebody bring an idea to fruition, to a workable business model, and then help finance them to get started, and they are successful in their work, it's a wonderful feeling, and that's basically what we do. So WEDCOnomics focuses on small businesses, usually, primarily, but today we have a slightly different angle, but it's an easy argument to say that what we're going to talk about today has a huge impact on the small business economy here in the Eastern Lakes region, and we are talking about the Cotton Valley Rail Trail. And our special guest is, we've entitled this Take a Walk on the Wild Side, which is kind of cool. But our special guest is Noreen McDonald, who is president of the Cotton Valley Rail Trail Committee.
Inc., yes.
Inc.
We're 501c3.
All right. Well, welcome, Noreen. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Yeah, we were going to try and do something trail side, but it became a little onerous. So we're in studio, but that's okay. I think you'll get a good feel for where Cotton Valley Rail Trail came from, why it's here, and what we can expect in the future. And so, Noreen, I just wanted to start and with some basic stuff, but I'm curious, Noreen, how you became interested in the Cotton Valley Rail Trail.
I'm going to step back one step and say, here's how the trail started.
Why are my guests so independent-minded? Go ahead.
Because the trail itself is because of volunteers, and I ended up as a volunteer. But 30 years ago, the Department of Transportation transferred the railroad's right-of-way to the New Hampshire Bureau of Trails. The Cotton Valley groups known as now the Cotton Valley Rail Trail Club and the Cotton Valley Trail Committee both went to the state and said, how can we build the trail? How can we keep this alive, active? What can we do? And with the volunteers to start, they started repairing the infrastructure and building some trails, especially the section from Center Street down to River Road. And then formally became groups. The Cotton Valley Rail Trail Club is a membership group, 501c6, and the Cotton Valley, my group, Cotton Valley Trail Committee, is now a 501c3, or in the process pending, but we are a nonprofit for New Hampshire.
Do you actually have ownership of the trail, or just
we have the responsibilities and the right to work in the trail? But we both have to file annual work reports that allow us to work in the trail. It all has to be approved by the state. We can't do anything, monumental without the state's involvement and without their approval. And we get state grants, but I applied in 21 for a grant in 22. The money didn't come. We get granted it, a year later. The prices change. Then you're trying to fix and make things work. It's a challenge, but it does. It's worked. It's been successful. The trail was the Cotton Valley Rail Trail Club works on the infrastructure, which was built in 1870.
That's the actual rail bed itself?
The rail bed, the culverts, the bridges, the crossings, all the different parts that
back in
1870s it was built.
No kidding.
So, and they have to maintain that for historic reasons. They can't go in and just, let's put in a new culvert and change it. They have to use granite to build those culverts back up or replace them. It's a very definitely challenging process.
Because it's a national heritage?
They're historic.
A National
History, yeah.
Historic Site?
I don't know if it's national, but it is a state. The state requires that it be maintained. And then our group, the Cotton Valley Trail Committee, has been building and maintaining the trail for the last 30 years. That's all been done with tons and tons and tons of grants and volunteerism. Our most recent grant was, we just finished it at River Street by the end of August. That was the last part of a 7-part grant. That was $62,000 in funds and $30,000 in matching volunteerism. That's the only way we can make it all work.
So when you say matching volunteerism, you're keeping track of people's time put into and
Every hour.
and that counts towards a match towards some of these grants.
Correct.
Where are these grants coming from?
Most of them are the Recreational Trails Program, which is it's a federal program processed through the New Hampshire Trails Bureau. It's a competitive process. This year, my husband was in the hospital for surgery but had complications, and I missed their meeting, so I couldn't apply for a grant this year because I didn't go to the meeting. Didn't even know about the meeting because we were in Boston for almost a month.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was but I've already got a list of things that will be on the grant for next year. We'll apply for it next spring. We win it in the fall. We don't get funded for another year. So challenges of trying to get that grant money. Somebody comes in, well, this is broken. How do we fix it? It's like, hey, it's either volunteer, find parts, or find pieces, but we do the best we can do.
So as far as Cotton Valley Rail Trail Club, which started as a group of volunteers, and they actually built part of they built the trail.
They restored the trail.
So the trail
the trail committee built the trail, and so that started, and one end started in Wakefield, the other end in Wolfeboro, and they came together in 2017 at Cotton Valley Station, which was the middle point, 6 Mile Park, and we had a Golden Spike ceremony. That's where I started to get involved. I put that together, and we had a wonderful, cold November morning, but over 100 people there to celebrate this trail coming together. And then suddenly we all sat there and said, oh my God, we now have technically 24 miles of trail to take care of. 12 miles down on one side and 12 miles down the other side, which is a lot of maintenance.
All right, so anybody using the trail today is not going to know which committee or which club is taking care of what part. But basically, you're telling me that we could leave the railroad station in Wolfeboro and go all the way to Wakefield?
To the Turntable Park in Wakefield.
Turntable Park. And then it ends.
Correct.
And that 12 miles, roughly 6 are with Cotton Valley Rail Trail and 6 are with the...
all 12 belong to everybody. Both groups are responsible for both sections.
Okay.
But Cotton Valley Rail Trail Club, or let's call it the club, they take care of still the infrastructure, and we take care of the trail, building it, maintaining it, etc.
Okay, so the club is taking care of, like, the bridges?
Culverts that fall apart. Beaver deceivers, they've been putting those in because the beavers will build a dam and suddenly flood out the trail. So beaver deceivers are pipes that are going under and through the culverts, so the water level stays the same, and the beavers don't need to be building the dam so high.
There's a lot to this.
There's a lot.
I mean, not only do you have to have funding for all this stuff,
Imagination.
but you got to fight off beavers.
Oh, and then this year we've been fighting Mother Nature. Mother Nature came 5 inches of rain in July in 1 hour. It wiped out 450 feet of trail.
Oh,
It's down to the black cloth, just like this. It's down to black cloth that we just hired. We signed the contract today with a company to come in with their rail car to bring them 45 yards of material, about 3/4 of a mile down the trail, and they'll repack it and reset it. A culvert was filled by the storm, and so the water came over the culvert and washed out everything. And then in the 24 grant that I'll apply for, we're going to look to build a section of trail off to the right of that section, so if it happens again, we have an alternative to use.
wow.
So when you ask, do we have any plan? Yeah, we have a lot of planning, short-term, long-term,
Yeah.
trying to make it all work.
But it's built, it's in place. So now it's a matter of keeping it up where it's a safe,
Yes.
easily accessible.
Correct. And it's
Recreational.
accessible by many, many parking lots from downtown, Mass Landing, Fernal Station, Bryant Road, Cotton Valley, Clark Road, Route 16, and Turntable Park.
Wow. Is it, all right, I want to just clarify one more time. So, Cotton Valley Rail Trail, which started as a club, but now is a 501c3.
No,
No, wait. Cotton Valley Rail Trail Committee started as a group of volunteers. It's now become, under your leadership, a 501c3.
Correct.
Okay. Cotton Valley Rail Club continues on as a 501c6.
Correct.
501c6. They're taking care of bridges, culverts,
The railroad tracks.
and just make sure that they're workable.
No, like last year. Last year we had it's not a brontosaurus, but very similar to a brontosaurus on the rails, and it trimmed back trees about 20 to 30 feet back because the trail had become like a narrow corridor.
Right.
And safety-wise, you need to open it up so people can see who's coming, can see if there's a rail car coming. Also, it takes down the canopy, which allows the snow to come down, so the snowmobiles can use it for the winter.
Okay.
And that trimming came down, and
Who was responsible for the trimming?
that was the grant that we wrote. I wrote the grant.
Committee.
I wrote the committee wrote the grant. The grant went through the Cotton Valley Rail Trail Club.
Why? Oh, because you weren't a 501c3?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
gotcha.
So it went through them, and then they hired the group working with the state. They hired this group. The young man was fantastic. I mean, incredible. Forester knew what he was doing and really, really made a difference cleaning things up.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that was a cooperative. We put in over 300 hours cleaning off the debris. It shredded it. It shredded it into like large pieces of sawdust that will just become part of the Mother Nature there.
Right.
But a lot of the bigger pieces had to be moved off, and that's what my crew did. And then we also cleared the causeway last year, and in November, 30 people came together. The rail car groups brought in two wagons, and we fill those up on the causeway, bring them off, and take them off and chip them to the side. So
it's essential for you folks to have a working rail bed because you're getting your materials by rail and
Correct.
You're moving things around by rail.
So in the earlier question was the rails. When this brontosaurus went through, it pushed one of the rails off, and so the rail was laying over. So now the putt-putt small rail cars couldn't use it, so they went in and had to fix 300 feet of, and they have a wrench that's taller than you are, that actually they use to pull it back, and wires to pull it, not even wires, contraptions to pull the rails back together. And then we fill it in and pack it all back in again.
So when that rail went out, right, when it got bowed out, that was a responsibility of the Cotton Valley Rail Trail Club,
Right,
because that was infrastructure.
correct.
All right. And so
And then we filled it back in.
so there's a lot of cooperation between the two groups.
Tremendous amount.
Does the club, when they have infrastructure work that they know of coming up, they'll also go for grants as well on their own?
Correct, we both apply.
And now that you're a 501c3, you can get your own grant. Doesn't have to go through the club per se.
Correct.
And generally, the grants that you're writing are going through Concord. This is a state.
The trails, New
Yeah.
Hampshire Trails Bureau.
Yeah, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about it. First of all, would you consider the rail trail a quiet walk in the woods?
It's a quiet walk in the woods until some aggressive bicyclists come down and go flying by you. And
You are on notice, aggressive bicyclists.
it's one of our challenges. I would say our biggest challenge, number one, is for people to understand that we're all volunteers and not a municipality out there fixing and making this trail work, and that the folks that are out there are not being paid to do this work. And many times they're treated very rudely, mostly by bikers who don't want to get off their bikes and walk around the cones. Last 2 weeks ago, we were out working at this 450-foot section that was wiped out, 4 of us, and as one gentleman rode by us, he screamed at me and said, "Get out of my way." And I said, "Sir, you do not own this trail." We were just working at River Street. We blocked off that section with a detour, with a sidewalk. Everything was marked well. People tore down the fence. People walked through it. People went on private property. They're the minority, but it's really disheartening for all of us who are working on the trail to make it better. It is a quiet walk in the woods, and it is a beautiful walk in the woods. And you go across causeways that you have water on both sides, and it's peaceful. It is, you do have some challenges out there with some people that, in any place you go, you have them. But that's the one thing I would like to really improve upon.
So you're asking for humans to be better humans.
Yeah,
Good
be
luck
respectful,
with that.
be kind, be respectful.
No,
Get off
that's
your bike
right.
and help move a branch.
Well, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't realize that these are volunteers. These are people that have any number of choices of what they can do with their time.
Their free time.
And they choose to dedicate themselves to keeping this trail open and worthy of foot traffic, bike traffic, cross-country ski traffic.
Everything. Unbelievable.
Snowmobiles, though, huh? So you allow motorized vehicles on the track.
Only in the winter. Only snow. Well, we now
So
have
no
electric bikes.
snowmobiles in the summer?
No snowmobiles in the summer.
But no, you'll allow electric bikes?
The state allowed them. We would prefer them not to because, again, some of them are so heavy people fall off and they can't pick them up. They're stuck out there. Some of them go up to 30 miles an hour. The speed limit's 10 miles an hour. They don't obey it. They don't stop for stop signs. They just plow through. There's 2 roads that I know you crawl across because you can't see them. So we're trying to work to put in crosswalks at those sections just so that both parties coming from both directions are like, oh, that's a crossing. Because they ignore it. It's amazing what they ignore.
So it's not up to the Cotton Valley Rail Trail Committee, Inc. to determine who can use it or what vehicles can use it. That's a state. It
So
comes
it
from
used
the
to be
state.
that horses could use it, and then because it's so narrow, the state took off horseshoes, and then the governor, without any hearings, allowed electric bikes on every trail, and it's great for those who need them. But when someone says to me, "Oh, I'm going for a ride on the trail," and they don't pedal, I'd like to know why that's a ride.
So the governor was trying to get that electric bike voting block on.
I guess so. It went through, and
Yeah.
we've had challenges. But this year seems a little bit better, and the bikes are improving. But it can be a challenge.
Well, it's so important that we all learn to coexist, and that we recognize the magnitude of the achievement of, and it's not just here. There's trails. There's
over
Wow
town,
Trail, the
yeah.
Wow Trail across the lake, and there's trails everywhere. And I've used them. I'm sure a lot of you folks have used them. But they didn't just materialize.
No, they took a lot of hard work.
And it's not, perhaps some of it is by the good graces of our tax dollars, but a great deal of it is not.
Correct.
A great deal of this is through the good graces of people willing to give their time and their effort.
And when it's a multi-use trail, it's a multi-use trail. That goes from rail cars to bikes, baby carriages, you name it, it's out there. Walkers, joggers, runners, everybody's out there. And we all just need to, and those pedestrians with 2 earphones in, take one out.
Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty.
We'll get down. We'll get the bikes and we got the pedestrians who are walking.
How can you walk around and be oblivious or not not have one of your senses totally tuned in to what's
what's
going on around you.
It's-
I can't do that.
No, it's absolutely amazing. So last year when we closed down the causeway for an hour, and this lady walked through 5 signs, walks down, and she's walking right towards the cutter, and I'm waving to her, looking at, and she said, and she's got both earphones in, she goes, well, I didn't even see the signs. I said, well, good, because turn around and go back now. And then another woman came up behind the sickle bar that's running. The operator's looking forwards. She's behind him. She's lifting her bike over the sickle bar that's running. I
Whoa.
screamed so loud. She said, well, why do I have to go back? I said, because there's equipment in charge. You went by the signs. Well, I don't care about the signs. Like, well, we do. We need, not only we trying to be safe, we're trying to keep it safe for the user.
Right. So you have signage on the trail. Mm-hmm. Is it state mandated signage kind of thing?
A combination. We work together with the signs that go up.
So you have the kind of signs that alert people to a road crossing
Those
ahead.
are stop signs. Stop sign ahead and a stop sign.
Is it the traditional
They're just
red
a little bit
octagon?
Yep, they're just
octagon?
a little bit smaller.
But people would certainly recognize them, even if they were from Canada. They would
absolutely.
Or should you put Arit on there? I'm asking. I don't. But okay, and what about speed limits? No.
We had worked with the chief of the Trails Bureau last year, and he enacted a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit.
So there
is. There is a speed limit on the whole trail.
Let me guess. 95% of the snowmobiles do not go 10 miles an hour.
They don't have to.
They don't have to?
They don't have to.
Why don't they have to?
They have their own speed limits that when they get their permit to have their snowmobile, that's a whole separate issue. And so they have areas that they can go slow, they can...
So the whole entire New Hampshire trail system for snowmobiles is under a snowmobile speed limit rule.
Correct.
Even though if you go way up north, the snowmobile trails are 30 yards wide.
Right.
But that's not the case down here.
No.
It's very narrow.
Between the tracks, we're 56 inches. That's all we have.
So you got the tracks and then you have 56 inches?
No, we have inside the tracks is 56 inches, and then sometimes we have an additional trail next to it based on the environmental factors.
Oh, so the trail is actually within the tracks.
Most of the, yes. And then parts of it are outside the trail.
So that you can have rail access.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm learning.
Yes, okay.
Quite quickly, actually, for me. That's, wow, a lot to it. And now you've gone from just a committee of volunteers, loosely organized, somewhat loosely organized, and now you are registered with the state of New Hampshire as a 501c3.
We're registered as a nonprofit in New Hampshire. We're pending our 501c3 with the federal government.
Okay.
That's all been applied for, just waiting for approval.
Which I'm sure will happen. So tell me a little bit about that journey. What have you learned along the way of moving from this, loose affiliation of volunteers into an actual organization?
I think we were pretty organized before that. This is just a nice designation that we can use. For this case, I just wrote a letter a couple of weeks ago, requesting funds to help us repair the damage from the July storms. That money can come in, go directly in. It's tax deductible. And we had a really nice response, and we're able to cover.
You did.
We have almost enough.
I told you were going to get a good response.
Yeah. So we raised almost $6,000.
Oh, I think
which
that's
will
fantastic.
Cover the 450-foot mark, but we can bring in the outside. There's no way I could ask my volunteers to do it, not to bring it down 45 yards, 3/4 of a mile down the trail. Just impossible.
No.
So
that's
so
a little
we really
rough.
appreciate the community's support in this, because this was definitely such a challenge. There's still tons of stone dust to purchase to replace other smaller washouts. There's ledge pack to get. There's drains that we need to install in the low areas. There are drainage vents that you cut in between the rails.
That's the club, though. That's not the
That'll
committee.
be us. It's
That'll
in the
be you?
trail. Yeah, it's in the trail.
Ah.
And we work. We're fair. We work together well. So
How often are you out there on the trail?
If I can get out there and walk every day, I try to see what's going on. But I would say at least once a week, whether it's putting up a sign or putting tape up or checking out a complaint or something. Last year, one section on the causeway, a hole just kept appearing. Well, it turned out the water underneath was so high it was hitting and washing it out from below. So I had to figure out. That's when we.
Or it was a beaver.
No, he makes different kinds. We have a whole spot where he's worn out in between Bryant Road and.
So you went from being a volunteer, and now you are just fully immersed in this thing. Isn't it amazing how that stuff works?
And I don't mind. I've been a volunteer all my life. And I actually built trail out in California, out by Yosemite National Park. That was
Did you?
Yeah,
Wow, it's
about
in your
30 years
blood.
ago. It's in my blood, and I fell in love with it. We built it all along the river. We did cleanups.
Out in Yosemite?
Out by Yosemite, just 10 miles south of Yosemite.
There's bears out there. There's wildcats.
That's the same thing in my backyard right here. No difference. I love it. One guy, we were walking the trail one day with our dogs, and he rode by us, and suddenly came back, and he's riding between us. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, well, there was a bear up ahead, so I figured if I'm with you, I'm safer. Thanks a lot.
Wow.
So we get calls from somebody, hey, I'm walking down the trail, and there's a bear out here. Can you make some noise? And, and I live along the trail. 1,000 feet of our property line is the trail. So I get to see it a lot and see what happens and can keep an eye on things, which is nice.
Are you still able to enjoy it, you personally?
Not as much as I'd like.
Gosh, that's awful the way that happens.
It's like emails, there's probably four to six, 7 emails a day.
Yeah.
What's going on, what needs to be done. But I love it. I love watching people out there. It is pretty neat.
Well, wow. We're getting towards the end here. Been very, very interesting. But so I'm going to have request Jake the Great to put up your information.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
I mean, I could read it right now, but fairly easy as far as if you want to go online, info at cottonvalleyrailtrail.org. Where did Cotton Valley come from?
Cotton Valley, the Cottons live on Cotton Valley, the top of the hill.
It's a family name, people.
From the 1800s, or 1700s, actually, 1700s.
The Cotton
and they
family.
Had the Cotton family all over. So when the two groups got together many, many years ago, they all agreed that that's what it was going to be called, was Cotton Valley Rail Trail.
That is a piece of information I'm happy to have learned today.
Yes.
Why is this called the Cotton Valley Rail Trail? I don't understand.
So, and the one thing I'd like to just say is thank all our partners. I mean, we've had incredible partners from the Wolfeboro Conservation Commission, the Trails Bureau. When I get stuck, we get stuck. They're there to help us. The Wolfeboro Department of Public Works, we've done joint work projects on fixing up the Fernal parking lot between the Conservation Commission, them, and bringing everything in to get it done. This summer, we've had Officer Josh Peasley, who has done an outstanding job of monitoring the trail on his bike from the police department. There's many, many more out there. All the volunteers who've donated
So we
money
do have a police presence out there on bike?
summer.
In the summer.
In the summer.
Very nice.
And it helped. There were some bunch of rowdy kids on bikes that were acting up, and
kids.
he took care of them. So,
He did.
so it was nice enforcing the speed limit, things like that.
Yeah. That's great. And really, it's a wonderful a marketing asset.
Yeah, it's an incredible asset. Every real estate that's somewhere near the trail says close to the Cotton Valley Rail Trail.
They do.
The businesses in town, especially the hospitality, the inns, the hotels, the motels, we're right next to the Cotton Valley Rail Trail. The businesses, all the restaurants, the little shops, you have thousands of visitors. If you walk down the trail and stop people, they're from all over the place. I was working on the trail Saturday morning doing some weed eradication. A gentleman stopped. He said, well, we come up from Portsmouth every weekend. We camp in Tuftonboro. He said, this is the furthest I've gone out. Tell me about the trail. And I did, and he said, well, how can we help? I said, well, in October, we're going to do a big joint project cleaning out the culverts. He said, let me know, and we will be there to help. And so
that's coming up in October. So is that going to be visible to people who go to info@cottonvalleyrailtrail.org?
It'll be on our website, which is cottonvalleyrailtrail.org.
Okay.
And then it will be in Facebook, and it will be in the Granite State News. Another great partner who publicizes what's going on, what's happening, allows us to update people on what the changes have been.
So by going to cottonvalleyrailtrail.org, people can sign up to be a volunteer.
By info, they just send it to info, and I sign you up as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And then you'll get monthly notices or a notice that we're looking for volunteers.
And you're looking, you can take more volunteers?
Yeah, we have at least 100, but we can
At
always
least
take
100,
more.
isn't that amazing?
Both groups are over 100.
That's fantastic. But there's plenty of room for more.
Oh, absolutely.
And
12
also, financial donations are very important as well.
Very, very important. Especially, this is the worst storm we've ever had in the 30 years of the trail. The most damage.
Yeah.
And it's not. We're going to look at building a fund, a rainy day fund, but it's not something that we had planned for. So.
Well, listen, when you get an email from Noreen McDonald, pay attention to it.
And if I yell at you in the trail, you've ticked me off.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. That's why we call the show Take a Walk on the Wild Side. Anyway, thanks so much for coming on, Noreen. Like I said, we'll have Jake get your contact information up
Perfect.
for this podcast and broadcast. And congratulations on becoming your own organization. I think that's a big deal and a big step forward for you.
It was challenging.
And it's
only
not
time
easy.
Especially with my husband in the hospital trying to do all the paperwork.
Well,
and
hopefully he's feeling better.
he's doing great.
And to all of you, thank you for tuning in. I remind you, Wolfeboro Community TV is also a nonprofit, and throwing a little love their way would help keep this organization vital and going. And that's, I think, another community asset, just like the rail.
Absolutely.
The rail trail is just something we should be supporting. So, hey, thanks for tuning in all. We will catch you next time. But in the interim, have a great beginning of fall. And Noreen,
Thanks for helping me.
oh, of course.
It's great.
Best of luck to you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you guys.